And that's why we're all here. We're all here to celebrate major change. We're here to celebrate the leadership of the Children's Rights Litigation Committee and the important partnership that we have with the American Bar Association's section of litigation, without which we could not have been on this 20-year journey.
You know, there is no right to government-funded counsel in immigration court proceedings for children. Deportation for many of our clients is akin to a death sentence. So when you say that you don't have a right to a lawyer in a case that could be a death sentence is really just disturbing and should not be happening in the United States in 2018.
After all, we stand where we stand when we stand only because somebody's in trouble and needs our help. It's about the clients.
Good lawyering produces better outcomes, shortens cases, saves money. That is where the evidence is heading, and we now have good evidence about that.
I think we talk about prevention. I would suggest to you today, in 2018, we have to do more than just talk about prevention.
On the front end, we have 30 Days to Family, which if every single organization in the United States had 30 Days to Family for the moment a child in our custody, we wouldn't need foster homes. We wouldn't really need much of anything. It's not about getting kids with Ward and June Cleaver. That's not what ideal families are. Ideal families are people who love you no matter what.
And in the work that we do too often, what I've seen is that we have become hospice givers instead of hope dealers.
We get so focused on physical safety in the child welfare system, on our goal and sort of the expectation being keeping children alive and free from physical harm. And in the juvenile justice system, we're fixated on public safety, that we ignore that actually the most important element of safety in both systems is whether young people are loved. You don't have community public safety without young people feeling loved. That proverb, if you don't feel the warmth of your village, you're gonna go burn it down, to feel it, that's real, right? And for children who do not feel emotionally loved, who do not feel like they are nurtured and in an environment where somebody is parenting them, they are the most unsafe children that you will ever find.
Our system ought to be family-centered, youth-focused, trauma-responsive, and community-based.
When I think about the term least restrictive environment, I actually think it's a really misleading term because I think it implies that what the biggest deprivation is for young people is a physical restriction or a loss of physical freedom. And in fact, if I were to rename it, I would be looking at placing young people in the most connected environment.
Children and young people, myself, all of us, we are a representation of the trauma that we have experienced and then the opportunity to heal or not. If we want to get radical, we have to start taking responsibility that the reason why we see the behaviors and we see what we see within young people is directly because of what they are experiencing and what's being wired and not being healed.
In what ways are system actors, like all of us, complicit in systems that don't treat children well? And I think one of the issues becomes when we are compliance-driven as opposed to outcomes-driven.
Now is the time for young people to be seen and heard, and for our movements to be intentionally inclusive and empowering of young people, with a seat at every table and a voice in every conversation.
What if youth drove the policy that shaped their lives? This is the final question before you today. And as we bring our presentation to a close, I'd like you to consider a few more. Not merely asking ourselves, what if youth drove the policy that shaped their lives, but what if we allowed them to? What if we prepared them to? What if we saw them, looked beyond their age, their circumstance, sometimes even their criminal records, and noticed their brilliance and value instead? What if we refuse to sit at tables and engage in work for them and about them without them?
That we need the next generation of ideas. We talked about all these times that our predecessors and the folks in this room had some interesting idea, some bold idea, some crazy-ass idea, and then it became law. What will be the next set of ideas, and who will be that next generation of leaders?
You, present here today, have the power, thus the privilege, thus the obligation to shift this pipeline, contributing to the societal disparities impacting young people, particularly LGBTQ, intersex, and non-binary youth and young people of color, so that young people like myself and the vibrant, beautiful young girls Naomi Waldler spoke of can thrive instead of merely surviving. We are the ones we've been waiting for.